Welcome in for another edition of NewOrleans.Football. As always, NewOrleans.Football is presented by PJ's Coffee, the best coffee shop in the land. Also, always presented by Matt Bowers Auto Group. Make sure you check out the pre-owned automotive center at 3750 Veterans Memorial Boulevard, right under us in our studio. Mike, let's roll into our first segment presented by Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon Restaurant, Bar, and Grill. Let's just go through, last show, Nick and I, we talked about kind of how you can't really evaluate draft picks on the first year and how you have to stretch it out a little bit, give them some time to develop, grow, get their legs under them.
Yeah, everybody always says wait 3 years. Mickey Loomis says it, but it's like one of the biggest cliches in sports. You can't judge draft class for 3 years.
Yeah. So let's go with that and let's see who will be the Saints' biggest draft winners in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I think so many times we talk about these guys like, where's he going to play this year? Is there a spot for him? Is he going to start this year? But yeah, let's think. What is it? 2028 now?
Yeah.
So they've played 3 seasons. Who gets the biggest grades? And look, I'm going to start with the one that I think people are probably sick of already after we've done 3 or 4 podcasts this week. But I'm going to go with Devin Neal. I just have a feeling that future will bode well that they got a 6th round pick that is still a productive member of the team. I think you get an automatic A if a 6th round pick is still a productive member of the team 3 years later. And I just see that happening. I mean, I love the value there. I think running backs can get on the field. It's a position where you can play a part-time role. Maybe it'll be even more than that for him. I mean, how many times did I say over and over again, I want the Saints to wait when we're having the Ashton Genty conversation and they're Bucky Irving on day 3 instead. If Devin Neal, and I think that's kind of potential we're talking about, is a Bucky Irving, that would be a home run pick, I think, 3 years from now. So I'm going to predict that happens.
I'm going to go on the defense and say Vernon Broughton. And you might say, well, why are you going with the round 3 defensive tackle? Listen to me while I'm cooking right here. So the thought process behind that is it's the time for Brandon Staley's new defensive scheme that he's bringing out here to get implemented. This is the new person that they've kind of pegged as the experiment for Bo Davis to continue to build on from the previous experiences that they've had. But also, I think there's going to come a time within the next 3 years, if the Saints' defense is pretty good or decent, that Brandon Staley's going to start getting those calls again to become a head coach once again, because he's already been in those shoes before. So if you have a player whose DNA is what the Saints have done to at that point, I'm guessing in the next 3 years, they're going to be fighting for at least the NFC South title. So a decent enough team to have that in place, then you want the person who kind of, was the first set of eyes and first player kind of in this new pack to be a leader of sorts in that defensive.
The first defensive player drafted by Brandon Staley in New Orleans. I mean, it's a really good point. I was reticent to pick him because I don't understand the crowd that they have at that position right now. I don't understand even right after the draft, I typed up the depth chart. You can go find that on the website if you want a vision for what the roster looks like right now. There's what order am I supposed to put?
Yeah, I don't know if he sees the field that much this year.
But trade for Devon Godchaux right away.
Right.
They decided to keep both Nathan Shepard and Colin Saunders, which surprised me. Brian Brzee is in this mix. Now that it's a 3-4 base, they got big defensive ends here. Are they moving Carl Granderson and Chase Young out to edge? Is Cam Jordan an interior guy? There's a lot to sort out, but the point of this exercise is 3 years from now. I think a year from now, right, I won't be a Shepard. There probably won't be a Saunders. There probably might not be a Cam Jordan. But it'll be really interesting to see how they all fit. Is it Broughton on one side and Brzee on another? That would be a best case scenario for the Saints. I know you and Nick, I remember I was listening in while I was in the draft media room while you guys were doing a live stream, watching Broughton's tape and being really impressed by it. Look, I was torn between Devin Neal and Kelvin Banks for my first pick. You left him sitting there. I wanted to be a little more interesting than just saying, the highest player they drafted, the best player they drafted. Yeah. But Kelvin Banks is probably my number one answer. I mean, Devin Neal has to make it. Kendry Miller is a 3rd round pick who we were really high on, and he didn't make it. I think Kelvin Banks is going to make it. I think he's a bona fide top 10 draft pick. I think worst case scenario, he doesn't play left tackle, and they're like, you're going to be Zach Martin or Quentin Nelson as a left guard, but I think he's going to be a left tackle, and I think he's going to be a good one, and I think he's going to be, when we're doing our top 10 players on the team, he's going to be in that top 5, top 10. He's a building block for this team. I think he's going to be a good player. I like the pick for that reason. Mickey Loomis said in his pre-draft press conference, when you're picking that high, you want somebody that's going to start for you for 8 to 10 years, and you go to bed at night and you don't worry about that position.
Yeah.
And if that is what he becomes, then he's the best pick in this draft class.
And I mean, I guess the final answer would you can put some other players there, and I'm surprised that you didn't take him earlier. But Tyler Shough, I think if he's able to close that door early and let this coaching staff know, yeah, you don't have to worry about picking another quarterback. You have me.
Yeah.
I think that.
You also used the word "if" 2 times, though. I mean, that's a whole conversation with that guy, right? Like,
yeah,
if he's the starter 3 years from now, he is the answer to this question.
Right. No, and for sure. And that means that the Kellen Moore system is working how it's supposed to work. If this is his guy if this is his guy that he got. And if he pans out, continue with that word again. If he pans out how they want him to in the development. And there's going to be a lot of moving pieces around him. There's going to be players that, I'm thinking just in terms of 3 years from now, Alvin Kamara probably isn't going to be here. Some of the receivers probably aren't going to be here. So if he can stay consistent throughout that, I think that bodes well. But also just thinking long term, and I know it's way too early for that. We haven't seen them do one game yet. But do you think at that point, Kellen's leash is still kind of flexible, or does it have to be, all right, it's time to start seeing results?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, 3 years is also probably the time frame for him. I mean, Dennis Allen didn't make it 3.
Right.
Because of the state of this team, he probably gets 3 years, but he doesn't get 4 if this thing's not moving in the right direction. So that's the same time frame for draft picks. It's the same time frame for head coaches. But yeah, look, when we conceived of this topic, where does Tyler Shough fit into this topic? Like, if you're a strong Tyler Shough believer, taking a quarterback at number 40, if you think he's going to be their starting quarterback in 2028, he's the answer. He's just, there's only 2 ways that pick can go. It's a home run A+,
right,
or he's not the starter anymore, and you judge a draft class after 3 years, and he's not on the team anymore. He's not the starter anymore. There's only 2 ways that can go. And I think at best, it's a 50-50 proposition. When you just look at the history of starting quarterbacks in the NFL, even if he had been picked 20 spots higher, probably less than 50-50. So like the pick, love the value of the pick. If he's the starter, he's the only answer to this question. But it's a gamble. It's a 50-50 at best gamble. There's no doubt about it.
Definitely a 50-50 gamble. But what else I was thinking about too is one of the more interesting exercises that we did this offseason was talk about the 2027 contracts. Also, I mean, I know for this exercise is about the draft picks from this draft class, but I think at that point you have to start seeing you got to see that this year coming up, real results from the Kool-Aid McKinstry's of the world as pillar pieces before you start rotating other people in there.
No question. Look, any honorable mentions? I thought about Jonas Sanker for this. I think they're going to find a home for him, but Banks and Neal were definitely my top 2.
I think the linebacker is going to be really good.
Yeah.
Once he gets, Pete.
He'll have an opportunity by them too. I think Demario Davis might be done playing by 2028.
I think that might be, the closing of that chapter. The investment that he puts in his body. I mean, you never know what kind of medical advancement is going to happen in the next year, let alone 3 years to see what's going to happen. But I think at that point, it's safe to say that he's going to be done. Let's roll into our next segment presented by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. You talked about Sanker. I mentioned Kool-Aid McKinstry, but person who's been there. And this is now, would this be his 4th? This would be his 4th year.
Contract year for Alontae Taylor.
Alontae Taylor. How is he going to be used, man? What is the best way for him to be used? If you ask somebody, just outside, they'll say, oh, well, you should try him at safety. Those are things that have been thrown around. I don't know if that's going to be the case now. It's kind of, is he going to go inside or outside? Because he's number 1 now. He is the number 1 person in the building now.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I think the Saints had their eye on drafting a cornerback high. I know they did.
Yeah.
And if they had drafted a cornerback instead of Tyler Shough at 40, then we'd be thinking, all right, Kool-Aid and the new corner are going to be on the outside. Alontae Taylor, all you got left is inside. But because they didn't do that, I think Alontae gets a chance to be one of the two starters on the outside. And we've had this long discussion with him. At first he couldn't get on the field on the outside. Paulson Adebo won that job, and they moved him to nickel, which is an unfamiliar position. And we had said for a long time, boy, I think Alontae fits best outside. And when they traded Marshawn Lattimore, it was, all right, here's his chance to prove he fits best outside. And then we watched him outside, and we're like, he might be better inside. Like, once you embrace that position, he played well at it. Well, Alontae Taylor goes on WWL radio, and he said that the vision for him in this defense is what Jalen Ramsey did for the Rams in 2020. And if you hear that, you're like, oh, so you just picked the best cornerback in the NFL and you said, I'm going to play like him. But Jalen Ramsey for the Rams in 2020 was playing for Brandon Staley. And so I have a feeling that is a specific conversation that he had with Brandon Staley about this is the vision for him. And what that vision is, and I think this makes the most sense for Alontae Taylor, is that he remains the nickel corner, because I think he's the best one on this team, starts on the outside when there's only two guys, and then when they go to nickel, Alontae moves inside, and then someone like Isaac Yiadom or Quincy Riley, if he's ready, moves to the outside, and Alontae moves to the inside. Now, reading about Jalen Ramsey, they called it the star position. You've heard that term, but what the star position meant for him, he was sometimes lined up as an edge rusher, sometimes lined up as a linebacker.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a big nickel. He's 6'1". Alontae Taylor is 6'1". So Jalen Ramsey is a very, very high target to set. But look, we've seen all the great things Alontae can do, and he just needs consistency. But if that's a vision for him, I'm excited to see it play out.
And then we know Alontae isn't scared to go in there and wreck shop. We saw it in the beginning of last season, how he was flying in. At one point, he might have been tired of leading the team in sacks just from, his explosive ability. So I definitely think he can fit that role as a kind of not even really game record, but like as a wrecking ball to do what he needs to do if he has to come down in the box or if he has to go back. But just kind of figuring out, you talked about Quincy Riley. Where do you think he'll fit in this year? Do you think he earns his stripes early?
Early is tough to predict. I mean, I like that pick a lot. And I don't think we have to judge him by where he was drafted in the 4th round. Like, he could have just as easily been a 3rd round pick. He could play inside. He could play outside. But I think when we see him line up at first, I think it'll be him sort of competing with Isaac Yiadom for that 3rd role. It'll be interesting. Is Alontae Taylor full-time outside, or is he a guy that moves to the nickel and then they have to, that makes the most sense to me rather than having Yiadom or Riley come in at nickel. But I think all those things are on the table as we head into the summer.
Yeah, wow. It's just crazy how much can change in 1 year. A year ago, we were talking about the competition coming up in camp between Kool-Aid and Alontae. Now, Alontae is top dog, and everybody else has to figure it out, with Lattimore leaving and Paulson Adebo leaving. It's just things can change fast. We're going to take
obviously a huge year for Alontae Taylor, though. I mean, if they're going to change his role for the 3rd time in 4 years, and it's a contract year for him, and he has to prove that he should get that 2nd contract and that they shouldn't be drafting another one high next year.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to hit a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have more show. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
Rouse's Markets is voted best grocery store in New Orleans, best grocery store in Baton Rouge, Mississippi, Gulf Coast, Thibodaux, Houma, Hammond, Lake Charles, Mobile, year after year. Thank you for choosing us best grocery store on the Gulf Coast. Number 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
The number 1 grocery store
In Mississippi, Alabama,
Louisiana. 1 million customers a week can't be wrong. Welcome to Rouse's.
The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Looking for the best insurance coverage at the lowest price? Look no further than Chaubert Insurance, the Earhart Agency. They are a local independent insurance agency right here in New Orleans, specializing in home, flood, and auto insurance. At Chaubert Insurance, the Earhart Agency, their dedicated team will shop every available carrier in the market, ensuring you get the most comprehensive coverage at the lowest possible price. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Trust Shaw Insurance, the Earhart agency, to protect what matters most to you. I do. I've been a client of theirs since 2021. Call them today at 504-326-6526 or visit them online at Protected by Shaw. That's 504-326-6526. Shaw Insurance, the Earhart agency, your local insurance experts. Hard Hide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. Attention Saints fans, don't let pests and termites invade your home field. Trust the team at Red Pest Solutions to tackle those unwelcome visitors. Call the Red Man today for unbeatable pest and termite control. Score peace with no pest. Visit redpest.com, REDDPEST.com.
Welcome back for more NOF. It is now time for our next segment presented by Shaw Insurance, the Earhart agency. Mike, Nick and I talked Monday about the Saints potentially adding Keenan Allen, how aggressively they should go after him. We mentioned some other names on that list too, of the list of free agent wide receivers in this second wave. But what about the pass catchers already on the team? Some of those guys, what if they just get the chance to show what they're made of and show what they can do and say, hey, I don't need to add anybody. You got me here.
I mean, I got two candidates that I don't know that they can show enough, in OTAs or have shown enough already for the Saints to decide they don't need anybody else. But if the Saints don't acquire anybody else, they're going to have an opportunity, and I'd at least buy their penny stocks right now. And the first one, I'll leave the second one for you because I know you're high on him too. But the first one I'll go with is Cedric Wilson, who I was pretty high on him last year, and that amounted to nothing. So I have to.
He threw that touchdown.
Yeah. He did. And there you go. He threw that touchdown pass, which was not the first time he had done that in his career. And the first offensive coordinator who ever designed a touchdown pass for Cedric Wilson was Kellen Moore.
That's right.
Back when Cedric Wilson was a thing, was playing for Kellen Moore for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021 before he got that nice free agent contract with the Dolphins. He had 45 catches for 602 yards and 6 touchdowns playing for Kellen Moore in Dallas. So, 6'2", 197. He's not super physical. He's not super contested catch guy, but that was the role we thought maybe he could play. Maybe working the interior of the field while Rashid Shaheed and Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave, and now Brandon Cooks are those speed guys. So I can't bet big. I can't make a proclamation about Cedric Wilson, but if he's ever going to revive his career, it's going to be on a team that has no one else his size and playing for the offensive coordinator he did his best work under. So, I've got him penciled in whatever, 4th or 5th among wide receivers. And if they add another one, then maybe he's the guy that there's no room for. But,
yeah,
as of now, there's at least a sliver of an opportunity there for him.
Yeah, and we're talking about sliver of opportunities. You hinted at it earlier in the segment about Bud Means. This is a guy that I'm high on. I'm high on Bud Means because whenever we communicate in the locker room, it's always, man, I'm just waiting for the opportunity to go out there and show something. And he did show a little something in his first couple of games, but injuries became an issue. But I do, an inventory kind of all the Saints players throughout, the year on their social media accounts. I'm sure everybody else does too, right? It's something that I, make sure that I check on a daily basis. And one person who's always on the field, off season, in season, wherever, holiday, is Bud Means. He's out there posting the cleats, posting the football. I don't know how he keeps on finding people to go out there and throw to him, but he does. And he's always on the field working on perfecting his craft and, honing in on his skills. And I think if he has the opportunity to become just that link in there that can do some of the dirty work across the middle, I don't know if it's his wheelhouse. He's told me he's more of a flyer, but you have to do what you have to do to get on the field right now. So I think if he continues to do that and continues to develop himself, it can bode out pretty well for him. No,
look, you're right. Look, Bud Means would have been my number one answer to this question too, but I'm a nice guy. I saved him for you. So
thanks, man.
I went first, but look, I mean, you said he started out good. It was it Spencer Rattler's first start?
Yeah.
5 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Spencer Rattler's second start, another 3 catches for 37 yards. And then the next game, he sprains his ankle and he doesn't play again because he had a setback in that recovery. So, So he was showing some promise. He might tell you he's a flyer, but 6'2", 215. I mean, he's got the build to be a physical pass catcher. We saw him obviously catch a touchdown in the first game where he played meaningful snaps, in that shorter confined area of the field. He's got the chemistry with Spencer Rattler. He's got the chance to build chemistry with Tyler Shough, who's coming in here, without having worked with any of these guys. So no favoritism there. And you're exactly right. I mean, not only what you're seeing on social media about how hard he's working, we saw him at the Super Bowl. He came and sat down with us. Go check out that interview on our YouTube channel, search NOF and Bub Means. His enthusiasm was clear. And then sure enough, I show up the first day of the draft. Guess who's at the facility? The parking lot, Bub Means. Like, he's, his enthusiasm, his drive. Don't forget about him. Just don't let him be an out of sight, out of mind guy. He's obviously got an opportunity here.
Yeah, and another player, who's been out of sight but has an opportunity, who came along kind of at the end of last season out of necessity, is Kevin Austin Jr.
Yeah.
What do you think his next leap is?
I mean, it's tough because now it's kind of crowded. I mean, we just listed 5 guys. Does that mean he's
Right.
6th? Does he surpass Cedric Wilson? But he did last year, 6'2", 200. Seems a little physical because he's got that strong build, but he's, again, none of these guys are Michael Thomas, none of these guys are Jimmy Graham, none of these guys are Marcus Colston, but there's a void to fill there, and he really showed some impressive things at the end of the year. So did Dante Pettis. Obviously, he's a smaller guy. Mason Tipton showed it last summer, but he's a smaller guy. So Austin is a guy who has the best chance of sort of those other guys to fill that role. That complements at least Olave, Shaheed, and Cooks.
Mason Tipton mentioned. Golly, man, it's been a minute since we've mentioned him. He
had so much opportunity last year and did not take advantage. Look, he gets to hit the reset button with a new quarterback, a new offense, make new first impressions or whatever. But the problem with Mason Tipton is not only do we not see it play out on the field last year, he's also redundant with the receivers that they have. And I guess we should also be mentioning tight ends in this mix. I mean, look, Foster Moreau obviously coming off the major injury. Hopefully he gets back fully healthy in time to have a productive training camp and be right back in the mix. But he was a guy we were talking about being sneaky more productive for this offense in the past, even than Juwan Johnson. But again, new system, new coach, new quarterback. Foster Moreau is another guy who has to prove it all over again.
And another guy too who kind of didn't show all of what I was expecting him to show is Dallin Holker.
Sure, really good point.
His combine last year, he made those spectacular catches during camp. He made some plays, so I want to see something from him. I understand he now has to learn how to block and everything like that, but pass catching is his forte. I want to see that happen more.
What do you think he's going to show up like a 260 now after it was 240 last year? I mean, he's a tweener. You know what I mean? He's another one who doesn't play necessarily with physicality, contested catchability. But I don't, if he added both, does he lose what makes him special? Because he obviously makes some of those highlight reel catches or whatever. But yeah, absolutely somebody who needed a reset button and a chance to start over again after it didn't have 3 catches for 21 yards last year, even really made the team.
Yeah, and now there's another tight end, another drafted tight end in the room. So.
The gauntlet's thrown on him for sure.
It gets spooky quick. It gets spooky very quick. We're going to hit another break, and then when we come back, we'll finish off the show. Keep it locked to NewOrleans.Football.
If you're hungry and just want something that actually delivers on flavor, this is it. Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon Restaurant just dropped some new menu items, and they're legit. The Philly cheesesteak po' boy is loaded up right, and the Philly pasta brings the same flavor, but in a new way. And don't skip the fried green tomatoes. Crispy, and that crawfish sauce is no joke. Open every day, delivering late. Bobby Hebert's Cajun Cannon Restaurant. Delicious food, superior service.
Welcome to the Queen Casino, the crown jewel of entertainment destinations. From the thrill of gaming, where every spin and deal brings you closer to fortune, to the excitement of sports betting, where you can feel the rush of victory. Our spaces and catering menu are perfect for any event. From business meetings to grand celebrations. Immerse yourself in our vibrant atmosphere with live music that keeps the party going all night long. Join us at the Queen Casino. Your royal adventure awaits.
Welcome back for more NOF. It is now time for our question of the day. Today's question is, what is the minimum that Tyler Shough would have to show that if the Saints finish with a top 10 pick, they don't even consider quarterback?
That's a great question. I mean, I was already thinking about this because Nick has made the point several times, especially when you draft a guy at 40, you don't have to be married to it. You shouldn't be married to it. Even if he's good, if you end up with the number 1 pick next year and Arch Manning's out there, obviously you gotta take Arch Manning. But what if you end up with the number 7 pick? Should you take the 3rd best quarterback in next year's draft class? Like, it's a very fine line. You should stay in the quarterback business. Even if Shough is good, it shouldn't stop you. And the first example that came to my mind was the Bears. Justin Fields had a pretty good rookie year. It wasn't a for sure rookie year, but then they decide they're the number 1 pick and they decided to trade down with the Panthers and say, look, I mean, we're going to roll with Justin Fields and give us all this ammo. And they traded down. And then a year later, the Panthers gifted the Bears a number 1 pick. Man, that was a bad trade.
It's the DJ Moore trade.
Yeah. And but because the Panthers used that pick on Bryce Young, and then ended up with the worst record in the league in Bryce Young's rookie year, the Bears, as part of that trade, end up with the number 1 pick again. And this time you got who was supposed to be and might still be a generational guy in Caleb Williams. They're like, all right, we have to trade away Justin Fields. We got to try to upgrade with Caleb Williams. And so, those are tough decisions for a team to make. How much rope should you give the guy if he's pretty good, if he's okay, but he showed some things? Do you give up on him so quick? It obviously depends on how high their pick is, which quarterbacks are out there. But to me, I would say it would have to be, this is probably pretty obvious, but it would have to be more than you saw in Spencer Rattler last year. Like, look, we just saw them do it. Like, I thought Rattler impressed me enough to be like, yeah, I want to see more. All right, that's what he did in his first outing when he was kind of thrown into the fire. My stance. I thought because Derek Carr was scheduled to make $40 million this year, they should have cut ties with Carr and roll out Rattler, giving him the entire offseason, build the offense around him, give him all the snaps in practice, and find out, and then for sure before next year. But yeah, I mean, if Tyler Shough, if we feel about Tyler Shough 12 months from now like we feel about Rattler, then that's not enough. And I look at the Titans and Will Levis. That wasn't enough. They got to go get Cam Ward when they have the chance. Who else? Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett, they moved on. Like, I mean, he obviously has to be way more of a sure thing than those guys. If he's Russell Wilson in Seattle, what he did his rookie year, then they're like, all right, let's either trade down and use this asset in the top 10 that we have to acquire more picks, or let's get an edge rusher, let's get a corner, let's get a receiver for our quarterback.
That too.
It's tough to exactly pinpoint it, but it depends. I mean, if you have the number 1 pick and it's Arch Manning, then Tyler Shough can go to the Pro Bowl, and you might still need to draft the guy with the number 1 pick. So it's a very undefined answer. But yeah, I absolutely think that pretty good isn't enough if you end up in position to get one of the 1 or 2 top quarterbacks next year, because you got to keep taking stabs at this until you have the sure thing. Another example that came to my mind, I mentioned the Bears, but like the Giants with Daniel Jones. The Giants have a top 10 pick every year, and I think they got themselves stuck sticking with Daniel Jones, and certainly paying Daniel Jones after he finally had his best season. Like, pretty good isn't good enough when you have the chance to go for great.
A scenario that I thought about when I read the question is back in the San Diego times for the Chargers, when they had Drew Brees and then they drafted Phillip Rivers.
It's the ultimate example.
Yeah. So that ran through my head also, but just in thinking about it, I think in the next, kind of sticking with that 3-year window, the defense is going to get worse because people are going to start to leave, retire, whatever. And if Tyler Shough can consistently keep the offense as a cohesive unit in a certain sense of, we can still do things, it's just the defense that's bad, then you still explore the option. You still, say, hey, if this is a generational quarterback that we're about to draft, we're just going to draft them. Just, hey man, hope you survive. That's on the table. But I think if he can keep the offense together and show signs of life continuously, not just for a half like Rattler, I still think Rattler, I don't even want to say should get a shot, because he is still going to get his shot, but it's not as clear of a road as it was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Rattler is now like, all he can do is hit home runs to get on the field now. He doesn't get to ride the roller coaster anymore.
Yeah.
Like Spencer Rattler doesn't get to go through highs and lows and successes. Like Spencer Rattler has to like look so good this summer and then play so good that he's undeniable. He doesn't get the opportunity to grow into the role.
Yeah, that's what I was about. Growing pains are gone for him. He can't do it, or else, I don't want to see him end up like Jake Haener did and go out there for a half and then get his card pulled and that's it. But it's not on the table since they drafted a quarterback with the 40th overall pick. But I don't know, man. If Arch does come out next year, depending on
and
what
we
he
don't
looks
think
like.
he will, and we don't think he will. So that's kind of a moot point. But like maybe Sellers or Aller or whatever is.
Yeah,
so
even us,
here.
somebody like
Maybe they have the Joe Burrow season, and you're like, but look, I think the answer probably lies somewhere in between. If the Saints have the 7th pick, and Tyler Shough looks like he can be a Derek Carr and Andy Dalton, like I'm not saying exact style, but like. The Raiders stuck with Derek Carr for 8 years, and Andy Dalton was with the Bengals for like 10 years, and they were going out and they were winning 9 games.
Yeah.
And not ending up with the number 1 pick the next year, then that's probably the most likely scenario. Either he's really bad and you have the first pick and it's the Titans and Will Levis and it's an obvious choice, or he's pretty good and you're winning some games and you're ending up with the 13th pick and it's a moot point for that reason. So There's just a very unique scenario where he looks really good, but you only won 3 games. And here you are with the 2nd pick next year, and you've got a tough decision to make.
Yeah. So even breaking that point down to you, what does that golden zone look like? What does that look like of his potential being met this season and the draft pick for next season?
Yeah, look, I'm going to bet against it. I'm going to bet against them winning 7, 8, 9 games with him as the starter all year long. But they are stepping him into a team with a lot of veterans, so that's not impossible. For it to play out that way. But look, if he's the starter all year long, I think we're looking at 5, 6, 7 wins as the most likely predictor. But that's not how I'm going to judge him. I'm not going to be like, oh, he failed, get him out of here. It's going to be a really hard standard. He's going to have to look better in December than he looks in September, and it's going to have to be pretty obvious to us. Go into the next year's draft and think, no, they're set there.
Yeah, and you and Nick talked about it on Monday's show. Is he a person that does the Drake May of come in week 3 or 4 and then start, or do you think they roll out Rattler?
It depends. If
like
Derek Carr's
ready,
if Derek Carr's not part of this team, I don't like with Drake May, they had a Jacoby Brissett who had started 50, 100 games with his league. I don't know what it is or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you go with Rattler and hold Shough at bay because, just to protect Shough. There might be nobody with the experience factor here.
Yes. Yeah.
And look, the other difference was part of the reason the Patriots held Drake May back was because they might have the worst offensive line in football, and they might have been like, we could kill his confidence, we could get him injured.
Right.
That is not going to be the case in New Orleans. I would not be afraid to put either Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shough behind this Saints offensive line, especially now that they added Kelvin Banks to it. It's not an offensive line where you're going to go and get your quarterback killed. It's a good one.
And definitely, I think they have that solid stone wall up there. Some pieces may, fluctuate over time, but overall, I think that's a pretty good offensive line there. I think, in my opinion, roll out with him. If you feel like he's ready throughout training camp, why pull the plug? Just roll out with him.
No, that choice is 100. I shouldn't say 100%. I was going to say is 100% going to be who plays better in OTAs, minicamp, training camp, preseason. But I don't even think it's 100% open competition. I think it's Shough's job to lose if it's him versus Spencer Rattler. Rattler could certainly win it, though. If Rattler is like, hey, I'm a year ahead of you, I just look so much more polished and ready, and you look like you need a little more seasoning, they would go with Rattler for sure. But Shough definitely wins the tie, or Shough wins the. We're hoping it's close enough that we have a reason to go with Shough.
I'm even just thinking about that scenario. If Rattler can put another half on what he did his first season, and he could finish out games, and he just holds on to it so that he doesn't lose the job. I don't know, I don't know what all of that looks like, but if he just puts it together so well, and this is wild because this dude hasn't even played a game yet, but does Shough become a tradable piece? Or,
No.
that's just a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. It's far, but
Not this early, yeah.
yeah. That'll do it for this edition of NewOrleans.Football. We appreciate you all for stopping in today. Catch you next time.